and welcome into Fantasy Focus. My name is Daniel Dopp, joined by my buddy Fields Yates.
Best buddy, as a matter of fact, as I just tweeted right now, a link to the show, is that we're doing Fantasy Focus today. Best buds as we are. Notably absent, Daniel. Notably, Mike Clay. As of yesterday, he was supposed to do it, and then he said something along the lines of, I have to do something for one of my kids.
Quote unquote. Yeah. The gall of that guy is all I have to say. Yeah, I'll tell you what, there's a reason why he's our nemesis.
Correct.
And it's days like today.
Yeah, exactly. You know, some of us show up to work when we feel like it. Mike shows up to work like once a year.
Yeah, really whenever he wants to.
Yeah, must be nice.
This is going to be a show full of us making fun of Mike, so we just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. We're also going to dive into a huge column that you and Mike wrote. Half of it is really good, Field.
Yes, correct.
So,
and then Mike also contributed 50% as well.
Yeah.
So.
But it is a big breakout column. Tell the people what you and Mike wrote, and then we're going to dive into it
today. The breakouts for 2024. And here's the best part. This is actually and I'm an idiot, and there are a lot of ways to point to that being the truth. But one that really shined during this column is So when Mike and I have done these columns in the past, these tandem columns, one of us takes the lead on writing the intro and then subsequently writes the first blurb as well. And then we pass the baton to the other person and we go back and forth for a couple of days until we are done. We have another one that we're working on right now in which Mike took the lead. But on this first one, I was the person that wrote the intro about what it meant to be a breakout, because there are a lot of ways to define it. And what I said was, amongst the criteria is you can be creative, right? It's not just guys that have come out of absolute nowhere and become fantasy stars. Maybe it's guys going from great to greater. However you want to define breakout is cool, with one exception.
Okay.
No rookies. And
rookies.
And then, of course, the sixth player mentioned was me naming a rookie, which of course we'll get to. And I don't know, maybe my dad brain is the one that's not functioning these days, because I completely forgot about the fact that I said to Mike, let's not do rookies.
You're the one that even brought it up.
Right. And the thing is that Mike didn't scold me over text, hey man, you just put a rookie in there.
No, he didn't.
Rather, Mike just wrote about my folly in the column. So go read it. It's all available on ESPN Plus right now. But yes, breakout players for 2024, loosely defined breakouts, and some familiar names from guys that were actually on the list last year, at least one specifically, and then some players that I think most people are probably aware of but have a chance to be special players this season.
Yeah, I love that. And Field, one of the ways that we're going to do this is we got a thing with buckets around here. We like buckets in this show, right? Late round bucket of flyers is a big thing for us. We got buckets. I got a bucket full of breakouts right here. If you are watching us on YouTube right now or anywhere else you're available, we got a huge bucket full of Fantasy Focus. If you're listening to us right now, do know that you can watch us every Friday, 12:30 Eastern time on YouTube.
Yeah.
This is a huge bucket full of a bunch of names. We're going to pull a lot of things out of here, Field.
This is a cool bucket as well. Where did you, are these available on Amazon?
Our producer, Tyler Mowbray, did this. He put together this Fantasy Focus bucket. I don't know how he did it. Looks like it was a lot of effort and hard work.
Completely overqualified to do what he does for this show. He's way too creative to be schlepping it with people like us.
I agree.
We see that often with some of the stuff that we come up with for the content schedule. But also, he sends us a picture yesterday, and he's like, hey, I've got this bucket for the show tomorrow. And I'm like, when did you have time to craft this bucket?
Make a bucket.
Yeah, so you have a bucket. It's well done by Tyler. It is not available on Amazon to my knowledge. Perhaps if we can find the right cause for it, we'll sell it if somebody is really interested in a fantasy-focused trash can.
All right, so we're going to be picking out names, and not just names. There's a handful of things in here. Like I said, we're going to talk about some of the players, whether we do think, and I know you and Mike wrote the column, but we're going to talk about whether we do think or don't think they are breakouts.
Guys, so
that's fair.
Don't worry about the fact that Mike wrote the column.
And then the idea of where would you draft them as a part of this? Is this a guy, because part of what you just said with breakouts, right? Breakouts can be a lot of different definitions. So is this an early round guy? Is this a guy we should be targeting the later rounds? So are you ready to dive in?
I'm ready to dive in. I'm going
to pick the first one. I have no idea what the first name is going to be.
Who's the best bucket in the NBA right now? Is it Luka after last night?
Probably it's Luka.
God, he was ridiculous last night, huh?
He's so good. All right. First one we're doing is Zack Moss.
Okay, first of all, I love the fact that the photo we have available for Zack
throwing
Moss,
a baseball.
Yeah, in a Reds uniform, the new City Connect uniforms they have this year, which baseball has been releasing these, I believe, piecemeal, one or two a week. I kind of dig them. It seems like most of the internet thinks they stink. I like this one, though. So Zack Moss is a breakout. Are you asking me or am I asking you because you select him?
So because I pull it out, I'm going to tell you what I think. I'll tell you where I'm at. And then you either agree with me or change my mind.
Fair.
Deal?
And then I have an observation about something specific to you that the America needs to know about.
Okay. All right. Deal. Yeah. So Zack Moss, I'll tell you where I'm at. Yeah. I like Zack Moss as a breakout. We started to see it last year, right? Taking over for Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. Now he moves to Cincy. Obviously, Joe Mixon is in Houston. Field, did they add anybody of note through the draft at the running back position?
They did not.
They did not.
Unless I forgot. Then I studied the draft pretty closely.
No, yes, you did. Yes, you did. So I love the idea of Zack Moss coming in and having the opportunity to be the running back in this Bengals offense. I think he's more of like a mid-round guy, mid to late-ish round guy, low-end RB2, right? But I still think breakout potential for me. There's a bucket. There's a tier list we're going to put him in at the end, and I want to save that. Anything that you disagree with, or are you on the same page with me as where Zack Moss is
So I have Zack a little bit ahead of consensus in my running back rankings this year. I think it was like RB 22 or 23 for Zack Moss. He was going, or I should say he's being ranked around like RB 27 or 28. The reason why I don't reference ADP data quite as much right now is because ADP data is very, very incomplete, right? It's Correct. May 31st. The busiest month of the year for drafting is August, but it gets busier as we get closer and closer to August. A lot of people aren't as invested in mock drafting right now as they will be a month from now.
We did a mock draft for all of us here at ESPN Fantasy. Zack Moss came in at the end of the 9th round in our 10th.
That's actually lower than I would expect, to be honest with you. It's a good opportunity, though. So let's just establish this baseline. Zack Moss is like a league average starting running back, right? Like I think he's maybe not quite league average, but he is a solid football player who last year, when given the opportunity, performed at a very capable level. I think that the opportunity is different, but perhaps even a little bit better in Cincinnati than it is in Indianapolis. Agreed. For this specific reason. The quarterback in Cincinnati is not going to be running the football a bunch at the goal line as the quarterback when he's healthy in Indianapolis was and will continue to be in the case of Anthony Richardson. So a lot of volume should be expected. Don't know what kind of passing game utilization we'll get from Zack Moss. Agreed. There are people who have debated whether Joe Mixon is like a very good player or just an okay player over the past handful of years. And for fantasy, he's continued to be quite good, right? He's been sort of like a comfortable RB2, despite the fact that his efficiency has been perennially poor, has Joe Mixon. So I feel like decent enough efficiency in an offense that with a healthy Joe Burrow should present him with some touchdown equity equals a borderline RB2 for Zack Moss.
I'm with you on that. Okay, if we were going to put Zack Moss into a tier.
Yeah.
If we remember, we did the tier list. You got the S tier, right? It's like God tier. Those guys are the superstars. And then it's A, B, and C. I would put Zack Moss in the B tier for me this year.
B. Okay. So like S is very top, A, B, C. I think B is correct as well.
I don't think he's a C tier. C tier doesn't feel like a starter. I think I can get starter value out of Zack Moss if I wait at the running back position.
And I think that like the ceiling on Zack Moss is relatively tapped. Like it would need to be not Raheem Mostert last year, but one of those seasons, Jamal Williams, where it's like, oh my God, like this guy is a fine player who is playing at like an unbelievable level. So I think B bucket is good for Zack Moss.
If he gets a ton of goal line opportunity, right? Like you're saying, like, sure, maybe he could jump up into that A bucket because of so many touchdowns. He scores 15 touchdowns this year. It would make sense, but that doesn't seem like it's
like you could tell me 950 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns for Zack Moss. But he may have 27 catches to go with it. So like the ceiling's tapped, but I think that enough rushing yards and the possibility of a lot of rushing touchdowns is in play. It was been in play with Joe Mixon.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. For what it's worth, 40% of our YouTube chat currently believes he belongs in the B bucket.
Wow, the 40% of the people that know what they are talking about. That's great.
Yeah, I like
All right, before I make my pick, anybody here who's watching right now familiar with Jay and Silent Bob? We've talked about your resemblance to these guys in the past, but because of the way, like you're wearing a hat backwards hat, and it's also got the kind, I believe it has like the kind of strap that you'd often see Silent Bob wearing.
Comes around.
Now, Silent Bob had quite a few pounds on you. I think he did lose some weight in his post-acting career. And his
absolutely.
And his hair was much straighter than yours. But with the way that your hair is flowing right now and the hat is being worn, very Silent Bob of you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's a compliment.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
There we go. Now we're speaking my language. So many good movies there. All right, Mallrats for the win. Here we go.
Fields, dipping his hand in the bucket. It's a deep bucket for what it's worth.
I don't know why I like exerted some sort of grunt. Like it was like took a lot of force.
Because that's just look at you, Field. Come on.
All right, next pick here is good pick by me. Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh, is this the rookie that we weren't talking about?
This would be the rookie that we were talking about. And let me tell you what. I'm going to break my own darn rules if I feel like it when I'm talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I keep coming back to it and I keep thinking to myself, what doesn't look good for Marvin Harrison Jr. on paper right now? When we think about the path to a wide receiver being a top 10 player at the position, he's got to be very good. Yep. He's awesome. I've not like I'm not like, grinding the tape every single day, but I've started to look ahead to the 2025 NFL draft. And that has caused me to watch some players that either are in Ohio State. They've got a couple of guys on offense that will be drafted, or a couple of guys that faced Ohio State last year on defense, including Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame. And every time you go back and watch him, you're like, Jesus, like Marvin Harrison Jr. was unbelievable. And the quarterback play was so pedestrian last year for Ohio State that you're just like, this guy's quarterback agnostic. And yet he has a good one in Arizona. You can debate whether Kyler's great, awesome, whatever. He's a good quarterback at the very worst.
Dude, we've watched Kyler when DeAndre Hopkins was out. He force-fed
Hollywood Brown
a ton of volume.
Yeah, we've seen him help wide receivers be great. Who other than Marvin Harrison Jr., amongst the wide receivers in Arizona, wide receivers only, would you say, I believe that player is due for a massive target share?
So Rondale Moore is gone.
Yep.
Nuke is gone.
Yep.
Hollywood Brown is gone.
Yep.
So you're talking Michael Wilson,
Greg Dortch Chamber.
And we love Greg. Like already, Trey McBride.
So I'm not, that's why I said non-wide receiver specifically.
That's it.
It's Trey McBride and it's Marvin Harrison Jr. And while I like James Conner, I feel like I just respect what he's done for the fantasy world over the past half dozen or so years.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Trey Benson, their rookie running back, is going to be good. Like the passing game is going to flow through two players, number 18 and number 85, Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. Massive opportunity here for the potential of like 10 targets a game. I have Marvin Harrison Jr. all the way as wide receiver 10. He's leapfrogged. I don't know how you say that. Leapfrogged guys that have a track record, right? Like I've got him ranked ahead of Chris Olave as an example, right? A guy who was really good last year. Same territory as Devontae Adams, right? Like who's an absolute star. Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't on that level as a player, but his quarterback situation to me is a lot more obvious. And Marvin Harrison Jr. ain't competing with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers right now. It's one other body he is competing with, and that's Trey McBride. So I don't know that, I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go a whole lot higher than wide receiver 10 in a lot of drafts, or will be ranked a whole lot higher than wide receiver 10. But if you find someone out there that's like, I've got him as a top 8 wide receiver, I'm not going to yell at that person and think they're nuts. Like to me, this is S tier. This is S tier breakout from Marvin Harrison Jr., the next great professional wide receiver in a league that, as we know, because every time I open up Twitter, Shefty's tweeting about some guy signing a massive extension at wide receiver.
Yep.
This is the next great one in a league full of great wide receivers.
So when I look at his number one wideouts, like we had talked about, that last year that Nuke was in Arizona, he had a 29% target share. Yeah. That won't be crazy to me if you tell me that Marvin Harrison Jr. is like flirting with 30% right off the bat as a rookie.
Correct. Feel the same way. And you think back to just last season, right? Like, I don't know that we can draw a ton in terms of like what the Drew Petzik offense looks like. He's their offensive coordinator in Arizona. Like we can't say there's not as large of a sample size as there was with Cliff Kingsbury, where like Kyler perpetually force-fed one guy, but the opportunity is way too good. And if they're going to have a functional passing offense, it's going to have to be because Marvin Harrison Jr. is this alpha from Jump Street. So I'm all in. S tier for me.
I love that. I wonder what our chat has to say. I'm sure that they have weighed in on where Marvin is. How many percentage, Tyler? 52%. Our producers, 52% agree with you, Field, and they say S tier.
Love to see that.
He's coming in with as much pedigree as anyone since Calvin Johnson we've talked about, right?
Yeah,
like, I mean, you pick a wide receiver that is like, it's almost going to feel weird. It's like impossible for this guy to fail. And you don't want to put that out there, but it's,
No, but like here's what I would say. The lesson I've learned is I don't want to compare him to Justin Jefferson as a rookie, because Jefferson was the 3rd wide receiver taken. He was, I think, 21st or 22nd overall, right? Maybe he was the 4th wide receiver taken. But the point is that this is the 4th overall pick, right? Going to a great situation. The first non-quarterback taken. This is more like Jamar Chase to me. And And I actually hope that Marvin Harrison like drops like 20 catches in the preseason. Everybody kind of goes off the scent here for a little bit.
It'd be like the Jamar Chase thing.
Correct. You're like, wait, hold on. Like, are we sure about this guy? We were sure about, like, just trust your gut on this one. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to mash this season. Mash.
For what it's worth, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and Jalen Reagor were all drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson.
He was the fifth one. All right, so in retrospect, there's only one player that you could have a legitimate conversation about, him or CeeDee Lamb. And neither of them. Jeez, Jerry Jeudy, man.
That's something. All right, let's dive another player. Another breakout. Dipping my hand into the bucket here, Field.
All righty. Yeah, see, when Daniel grabbed the bucket, he didn't like make a grunt because he's a normal functioning human, unlike me.
Here we go. Going back to the well, I feel like this one must be Mike Clay's. Did Mike write about this?
You know what? I stole it from Mike. I felt like doing something very Scott Clark.
Garrett Wilson.
I said, hey, I'm taking Garrett Wilson to lead the column.
For those listening on the audio podcast, Garrett Wilson is the guy. Listen, it's impossible. I feel like I don't even need to say this, but it's like Garrett Wilson felt kind of like the obvious one here. We were waiting for that breakout last year. Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, tanked a lot of that because he was playing with a bunch of not very good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Now in a situation where you get Aaron Rodgers back under center, the offensive line is a little bit better this year. Breece Hall is back and fully healthy. This is an offense where not only is the Jets with Aaron, should they be one of the better offenses in the AFC, Garrett Wilson is an easy top 10 wide receiver for me. He's S tier. I think he is one of the best and will continue to be one of the best wide receivers with a full season with Rodgers under center.
So the very good stuff that he's done already, he's had a ton of catches, 180, I think it is, 180-ish through two seasons. So basically like 90 a year, right? Maybe it's a little lower than that, but somewhere north of 80 per season. All right, that's a good number there. Yards, solid. That being said, like there's way more yards per attempt or yards per completion, yards per reception available for Garrett Wilson because his offense will be functioning, right?
Yep.
But the biggest change is touchdown equity, right? I mean, there just have been so few scoring opportunities for Garrett Wilson, or when he did get end zone targets, they were thrown into the stands because they had the worst quarterback room in the NFL this last season once Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So we can think about a lot of things. We can be complicated and throw a bunch of numbers your way. This one is you have an awesome player who's getting a 4-time MVP under center at quarterback. That alone should make Garrett Wilson a step up compared to where he has been already. He has 100%. Not yet been a top 20 wide receiver for a full season in his career. It's only 2 years, but still no top 20 finishes. He will comfortably be inside the top 20. Like you, I have him inside the top 10.
Agreed. All right. So that's an easy, I don't want to say easy one, but like that one I definitely agree with. It should be mentioned though, because we had an expectation last year.
He's the face of the column for a reason. Yeah. I mean, that's I think when Keith Lipscomb was signing the column to me and Mike, he was like, we got to find a way to write about Garrett Wilson. Can you just do this?
52%
accomplished.
For what it said. 52% said A tier for Garrett Wilson,
A tier.
not S tier.
Interesting. I wonder if maybe some of that's perception that he was already like quite good.
He was already like, so good.
You know, how much more can you go?
Right,
My next pick, Dalton Kincaid.
Ooh, I like this one.
Second-year tight end for the Buffalo Bills, who, as we talk about this Bills offense, Daniel, all the attention has been paid to the fact that they have a very thin wide receiver room.
Yep.
It might be that what the Bills do is they kind of offset it by throwing their tight ends a lot. So I would say Kincaid is going to, I'll call him an A-tier breakout for me for this reason.
Okay.
I just don't, like, I don't have him inside my top 5 for tight ends, which get used to hearing this a lot over the next few months. Feels like the tight end position has more depth at the top than it has in the past. I know we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
That being said, here's why I think Dalton Kincaid is not S tier, but it's instead A tier. I think he's going to feast as far as receptions go. I think a lot of it, though, is going to be more security blanket type, where this is almost like a large slot receiver here, where I'm not totally convinced that Dalton Kincaid is going to have a ton of touchdowns or a huge number of yards. This might be like Evan Ingram last season.
I was just going to say that. That's what you're describing.
Yeah, and so Evan Ingram, who ends up having more catches in a single season than any tight end ever. But remember last year, and I'm sure it'd be great if I could fact check this fast, but someone in the chat can correct me if I'm like egregiously wrong.
They will.
But I think Evan Ingram went until like week 10 last year without scoring a touchdown. And yet he was still hovering around as like the 8th best tight end because he had like 80 catches through 10 games and had 0 touchdowns. So I don't think it'll be like that bad for Dalton Kincaid. I'm no Mike Clay, but I don't project a guy to have 0 touchdowns through 10 weeks. I think someone was just saying something in my ear, but I couldn't hear them. 13 what?
Week 13 was the first touchdown.
Week 13 was the first touchdown. Sorry, I'm getting old. My ears are old. My body is old.
4 touchdowns on the entire season. This was one of the things that I said about Evan Ingram last year. There are some tight ends that are touchdown makers and some tight ends that are chain movers. And Evan Ingram is more the guy that is a chain mover. He helps the offense more in that respect rather than like being that big Jimmy Graham that goes up and gets the 6, right?
I like it. Yeah. So he will be an A tier because I think there's a chance that he has 100 catches. He also might have like 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns. Yeah. But by the way, 100 catches for 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns will be an A+ investment at tight end.
I agree. 40% of our YouTube chat actually has him in S tier. They're loving the Josh
Bills
Allen
Mafia.
connection.
We're big in Bills Mafia, so no surprise that they're
especially
going heavy on the
losing Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. It's like you're relying on Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and a rookie in why am I just playing? Keon Coleman. Yeah. Thank you, obviously.
All right, the bucket's back to you.
All right. Coming back to the bucket. Did that help? I tried to make a noise so that didn't feel so bad. All right. Diving in here for another one. Okay. This one's Johnny Utah from Point Break. Is this a breakout? Because of Point Break.
Yeah, got it.
Do you remember Point Break?
Of course, yeah. One of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, great movie.
This is one of my favorites because it's young Keanu, but it's not silly Keanu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's had, all right, I feel like whenever he comes up, like I feel responsible to talk about him in here for a second. It's the last day of May. You guys can forgive me for 30 seconds here, but like talk about versatility and range.
Oh my god.
And then also like, does it sound like he's the greatest human ever? Everybody says he's like the coolest guy, like does great by like all the people he works with. He's been through some personal tragedy and has maintained like his level of like dignity and integrity. Love him. Great movie, all-time great movie. The kind of movie that when it's on, like when you're scrolling the channels, if you're still a cable guy, if it's on, you're watching.
You're leaving it on.
Yeah, you're leaving it
on that one.
It's we used to watch it all the time. Not that I was great, but I was a football and lacrosse player in college.
Absolutely.
And all of our trips were on bus, right? We played all New England schools. So I was at school in Connecticut and we'd drive 6 hours to Maine or something. Great bus movie.
Was he a football player in this movie at any point in time?
I don't think so. Was he?
No, it was just surfers. They were all surfers.
Just surfing. I mean, I don't know if they referenced football.
Yeah. Oh, he had a college career is what I'm being told as a part of that.
Oh,
that's
okay.
why.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay. There you
I'll tell you what, though. Anytime that you got Keanu Reeves involved in anything, for me, it's almost immediately S tier.
Yeah, S-tier,
it's just the dude knows what he's doing. Totally. All right, having a little bit of fun with that one. Point Break.
Before I saw Point Break, though, I thought it was a tennis movie just because Point Break sounded like Break Point.
The idea of Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze doing something together is like, man, I can't. You got to watch that.
Good old days.
That's right.
All right, here we go. Next pick here is another good one here. Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. Let's talk about this one here for a second, Daniel. It was a small sample size last year.
Super small.
And he kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
And there's a chance that the Colts take the 4 games that Anthony Richardson started last season and use them as like a learning curve. And they're like, hey, we can't afford for him to constantly be in and out of the lineup. And that obviously that shoulder surgery cost him 3/4 of his rookie season.
Yep. We
have to change his style of play. I also think it's like really difficult to keep the Ferrari in the garage, right?
Yeah.
And they have this 6'5", 245-pound built at like, Greekest of Greek god, legendary status human being, and Anthony Richardson, that it's going to be really hard for them to not utilize him as a running quarterback a ton. I've said this before. I do not have him as my top-ranked quarterback, but there's a chance. And I do a lot of drafts. We all do. We play in a lot of leagues. We also do a lot of mock drafts. There's a chance that I'll toy around with taking Anthony Richardson first amongst quarterbacks in a draft. Not because, and that's not going to happen in a draft where quarterbacks are going early. But when I play in a league of people, and this often happens when you're playing with a bunch of other sort of fantasy analysts, quarterbacks tend to wait a little while, right?
Always.
Value-based drafting.
Yep.
I might break that streak and take Anthony Richardson.
Really?
Maybe worse. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, and it's like, why bother when you know you can get him 3rd or 4th? Because what I'm fearful of is that when you do play in these analyst leagues, while quarterbacks tend to have to wait a little while, they also tend to go in runs. And so, like, if I'm picking at if I've got the 2nd pick and all of a sudden I've got to wait 18 selections between picks and I don't take a quarterback, but someone right after me takes Josh Allen, there's a chance that it goes Josh Allen, I guess Jalen Hurts probably, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Anthony Richardson over the next 18 picks before I get the chance to step back into it.
So I will say this really quickly. We just did a mock draft, like I said, for ESPN Fantasy. Round 4.
Yeah.
First quarterback off the board came for Tristan Cockcroft. It was Josh Allen.
Okay.
At round 30, pick 34. The next quarterback was round 5. And in round 5, it went Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, skip a couple spots, then Anthony Richardson, then skip a couple more spots, then CJ Stroud. So that's the run you're talking about.
That's exactly
Once
what I
the first
fear.
one came off, it's like if you wanted Richardson, you needed to take him in the 4th round before everyone started that run.
That's kind of what that worked out. I was
like
not remembering
not playing that.
I did not remember that happening, but it's exactly what I fear here. But I just think an absolutely massive season in store. I don't care if he's a good passer or not. I don't care if he's accurate or not. I think this offense is going to be set up in a way where they make things relatively simple in the passing game for him. Heck, we saw Gardner Minshew have some monster games last season, including like the unexpected shootout win against the Browns, who had the best defense in the NFL at that point, and for much of the season last year. So, but like the unlocked potential of those legs are just so hard to ignore. So massive breakout S tier candidate for me. I'm sorry that I've handed out a couple of those already.
No,
but,
I'm with you on this.
This is not a 30-player list that we wrote. It's an 8-player list. So the top half of it especially, very juicy.
Anthony Richardson is S tier for me as well. And you mentioned it. I just want to say this. He played 4 games, right? Left early in 2 of them because he got hurt. But in 3 of those 4 games, 40 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, 35 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, 56 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown.
Absurd. It's
silly. Just crazy.
Silly.
If he gets anywhere near that same value like we expect him to do, like I'm with you. If you want him, he may have to be the first quarterback to come off the board because once that run happens, it's going to be tough.
Great coach, good pieces around him.
Love Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell as well.
Yep.
Josh Downs is going to have another step. All right, dive in on the next one. Next one, here we go, guys.
Johnny Utah again?
Oh, it is not. It's breakup season. Shout out to my friends and future teens. Darren Waller.
Dude.
I don't think Darren Waller is up for a breakout season, but I know that he is up for a breakup song, I believe. We got a music video. If we are we allowed to play any of that music video?
I'm guessing no without asking. Can we?
I don't know.
Whatever.
That's tough. I'll tell you what. Let me lead with this. Let me lead with this. Love Darren Waller. He's got an awesome story, and we are all super thrilled about like everything he's overcome in life. I don't want to like make fun of that. Don't necessarily love the song very much, though. A lot of auto-tune.
Okay, that was the word I was thinking of because I couldn't quite figure out. Again, you're the music guy.
To me.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Tough look. Yeah.
Broken Heart. Hey, man, Broken Heart makes you do a lot of things. I totally understand it. But I don't think that song doesn't make the S tier or A tier or B tier for me.
My wife called 3 separate songs the song of the summer last night. We were listening to music with the kids. 3 separate songs, which was great.
It's like, you only can pick one. You can't pick 3.
I finally told her, I was like, can we just call it the songs of the summer? Darren Waller's song did not make the list.
Did not make the list.
We also decided, like, I had some help. Morgan Wallen.
That's fair.
Morgan Wallen and Post Malone, like, absolute banger. Like, going to be hard to unseat that one for the song of the summer.
For a minute, yeah.
So, yes, that's the actual song of the summer. Honorable mention for Darren Waller.
There you go. I like that.
I need to grab one of the non-football ones now. Oh, I guess that was a football guy, but, you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, technically it was a non-football guy.
We're making great progress on these, by the way.
It helps because this bucket is very useful.
This bucket is useful. Oh, man.
Are you going to get this one?
This is pretty good right here.
Breakout by the Foo Fighters. Do you know the song Breakout by the Foo Fighters?
I don't know the song Breakout. Is that one of their all-time
Breakout
songs?
It's not like a one of their bigger songs, but it's a big song.
Okay, got it. Yeah. You know what came across my timeline recently was when one of the Foo Fighters, one of the late Taylor, I forget his last name.
Yes.
The drummer or the guitar? The guitar.
Yeah. Hawkins, I believe. Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor Hawkins, right, the drummer for Foo Fighters. And he tragically passed at a far too young age, a little over a year ago, and his son stepped in for him.
Such a cool
And
moment.
I saw it, and you're just like, dang, like, why am I sobbing again?
I was going to say, it's tough not to get choked up in moments like that because it just feels like it transcends. Like Foo Fighters is one of those acts, especially with Dave Grohl, like he's he's one of those, feels like one of the good guys in music.
Totally.
And you love, like, it's not hard to support guys like that.
I think Dave's a big sports guy as well. Like, I've heard him, I'm pretty sure with Simmons a few times, like, big sports fan. Foo Fighters rule. Kenny Mayne loves them as well.
Absolutely.
Like, so
they've gone through a lot of different changes, a lot of different years.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm always surprised by. I'm like the least music guy of all time. Daniel is, but sometimes you'll be like, wait, like somebody was in Foo Fighters and Nirvana and
Sunny
like
Day
Grateful
Real
Dead.
Estate
You're like, what? Like
all the good stuff.
Okay,
all the good stuff. I love it. All right. By the way, Foo Fighters. I'll probably still be. I mean, we're putting a lot of them in here. Probably S tier for me as a band. They've been around for so long. They got staying
I'm going to
power.
defer to you on that. Actually, I had a thought on this. Just a quick music question because we were driving back a couple of days ago from Massachusetts, where I'm from, and where Chapin's from as well. And we were listening to Grateful Dead on the way back, and Friend of the Devil came on, and we were debating, like, there are a handful of songs that you could, like, I'm sure you could ask 10 different people who sings this song, and like the person or the band that they select is accurate. But like, who do you think of when you think of Friend of the Devil?
Well, Field, that's a great question.
Okay.
Probably Arthur Smith.
Okay, Arthur. I was going to say Counting Crows.
Oh, okay. I meant Arthur Smith might actually be a friend of the devil.
For a second, Arthur Smith was some musician I never heard of.
Sorry, God. I apologize.
I thought he was an actual human who sang songs for a living.
He just hates our fantasy players. Everyone knows it.
That is great.
No, Counting Crows is a good one. That's a good one, actually. I know the Grateful Dead song that you're talking about, so like that's the first one that comes to mind when you say it. Counting Crows is good though too. That's another banger of a band.
Oh yeah. So hanging around.
A lot of good stuff.
Mr. Potter's Lullaby.
Mr. Joe's.
Yeah, Mr. Jones. Probably the number one wedding song from Counting Crows.
Absolutely.
But anyways, there are a handful of songs. Like if you think of one, like send them our way that you're like, this has been written or it's been performed by, who knows how many, right? Yes. But like there are people out there, and I'm not begrudging them. This is like, they're probably young, who think that Fast Car is like a Luke Combs song.
Yeah.
Right? So like 20 years from now, they'll be
check
like,
out Crazy
I love that Luke Combs song, Fast Car, like back when he was at his apex, which I love Luke Combs. I do. And I love the song, but it's like, I'm sure there are like, I'm sure my parents would be like, dude, like that's one of the greatest songs of all time, but one of the greatest musicians of all time. Like pay some dang respect.
A little bit homage to, I'm with you on that one. Yeah. All right. Next one we have up here is Bryce Young.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So Field, I didn't write this column.
Yeah, nor did I.
And
not this part, at least. Not this part, yeah.
I was a little bit surprised pulling this name out of the bucket because I don't have Bryce Young ranked as a top 25 quarterback.
He's fringe for me, yeah.
I think this is a situation, and I'm kind of like reading into Mike, knowing that I read the column as well. This is a situation where it feels more like second-year quarterbacks. We oftentimes see a leap, right? Yeah. You're looking at, okay, maybe we're going to have a better situation in year 2 than we saw in year 1. Adding a couple of pieces in DJ Chark not DJ Chark, he just left in
Deontay Johnson.
Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette as well in the draft. But in spite of the idea that he could maybe be a breakout candidate, he would be in the C tier list for me. Like he's not, he's going undrafted for me in fantasy. It's the idea of, can he be something more than what we saw year 1?
So I would say C tier, like flirting with B, but C. I do not have, this was a Mike contribution, which you probably gathered by the way that you and I introduced this topic.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm having a hard one. And like, there is a fear. This fear has been one that I've talked about with people in recent weeks doing some podcasts and such. There's this fear of discounting talent, especially discounting it too soon, right? Yep. Like the context that I was discussing it in was somebody was like, is Deshaun Watson just done as a good NFL player? And there's a part of me that says yes. And there's a part of me that knows that if I say that matter-of-factly and with like everything in my body says, yes, he's done. Like Deshaun Watson's still under 30. Like I know it's starting to get up there in terms of number of years ago, but there was a time where he was probably the number 2 quarterback that people would build a franchise around behind Patrick Mahomes. And that's not that long ago in the grand scheme. So with Bryce Young, what I fear is that this guy a year ago at this time, we were like, OTAs were off and running, and it was, the Panthers have such a great coaching staff around Bryce Young, who is so talented, this masterful distributor.
That didn't work out last year.
It did not. But here's the reason why he's still in a C tier for me. I think he'll be improved. I think Dave Canales showed last year that he's obviously the new head coach of the Panthers. Can do a good job.
Came over from Tampa just as a part of that.
Yep. And Bryce is not going to be a big runner. He's an average athlete. I mean, he's a solid athlete, I should say, but not dynamic, right?
He's quite a bit smaller than the other quarterbacks from last year's class too. A part of the running, like if you're going to be out there running,
sure is.
You know, part of the way that Kyler Murray is able to do it is that he's got a thicker, stouter frame, right? As being a smaller guy. Bryce isn't like quite as thick and stout as Kyler.
I mean, remember the big question during the draft process last year was how much does he weigh?
Yeah.
So yes, he can run, but not at an elite level.
Right.
So you're basically asking this guy to be this sniper as a quarterback. And then you're looking at the roster and you're like, okay, it's better than where it was last year, but are we certain there is a clear-cut, bona fide, true alpha number one wideout? And do you really trust a wide receiver trio of Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen to kind of catalyze this huge offensive explosion? My answer would be no. I think they're going to be a better team. I like the direction they're heading. I think they have a credible ability to actually evaluate Bryce Young this year. Like, I feel like last year's kind of a toss it away year, but I do not have Bryce Young inside my top 20 quarterbacks. And if you're not ranked inside the top 20 preseason, it probably means I'm not interested in you, absent being in a 2-quarterback league.
Agreed. I'm with you on that. I think one of the questions that I do have about that Panthers team is obviously drafting Jonathan Brooks, expecting him to be there, but like they paid Miles Sanders a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard, like they got 3 running backs and
Rashad Penny.
Yeah,
don't forget.
I don't even know, but like, how do I feel? I'm going to need you to talk me into the idea that I even need to consider Rashad Penny after what happened last year in Seattle.
No, you don't.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You don't. You know, like,
oh my goodness.
There are certain players, and that's how the internet kind of was a stir about this recently. Like the Eagles signed John Ross.
I saw
and everybody was like, wow, Eagles, like, sign, or was it the Eagles? The Eagles signed him. He was with the Giants briefly. And it's like, dude, who cares? I mean, like, I'm happy for John, right? It's an opportunity and I respect him, like, continuing to pursue the dream, but it's like, what's the best case scenario here, right? Like if he becomes like even a top 5 wide receiver for Philadelphia, it's like a massive success story, but it's like, he's going to obviously be like, probably like off the roster in a few months, right? So it's like at some point you have to stop holding on to the fact that a guy was a 1st-round pick.
Correct.
And we're dangerously, if not already there with Rashad Penny, which is weird because 2 seasons ago down the stretch, he's pretty good.
Yep.
Then he goes to Philly behind, one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line in football, and what was a total like dominant rushing attack for multiple years. And it's like, can't even play.
Not even a part of it.
Crazy.
So weird.
Yeah.
That part is really weird.
Yeah, it is.
All right. We're going to keep moving forward. Yes. Is it your turn? Is it my turn? Are you sure? You just had Bryce Young. Yeah, that's right. I just had Bryce Young. Yep. All right, Field.
2 at 1 there. Sorry.
Uh-oh. Field's over here breaking stuff in the studio.
You know what else is the song of the summer here? $1 Million Baby. That's on the short list. Great song. It's playing in my head.
Play right now.
Next pick for me, Tyjae Spears, running back for the Tennessee Titans.
Talk to me about it. I'm actually interested in this one now that Derrick Henry is gone, but they did bring in Tony Pollard. So how you looking at this shakeup in this backfield?
I don't know that I can get there right now.
Yeah.
I have these guys ranked back-to-back on my running back rankings, and this reminds me of what I did last year with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr., which looks like obviously very dumb in retrospect, right? I mean, Jeff Wilson Jr. was like basically a non-factor for them.
There was reason going into the season why that made sense, though, right?
Yeah, but my thought process going into the season was based off of like the first 10 years of Raheem Mostert's career.
Exactly.
He probably wasn't going to have 22 rushing touchdowns. It was like, hey, when Wilson got a chance 2 seasons ago, he was pretty good. When Raheem Mostert got a chance 2 seasons ago, he was pretty good, right? And so I think Tony Pollard showed last year he was miscast as like a down-in, down-out running back, right? But a couple of seasons ago, we were all sitting there clamoring for more Tony Pollard. I say this often, follow the money, 3 years, $24 million. Like, I don't think Tennessee would sign a running back for $8 million a year if they don't plan on utilizing him a lot. And so Tyjae Spears, who's not a big guy, is not going to all of a sudden become a 20 carry per game player unless this is a sunk cost investment in Tony Pollard before we even gotten to freaking minicamp.
Yeah.
So I think there's just going to be like, this is going to be a clear divvy it up, let both guys eat. So I would say C tier for Tyjae Spears.
I did like the idea that last year he was utilized as a pass catcher, right? Out of the backfield. And that's where Tyjae, knowing that he is a little bit smaller, and I think, did you write this one or did Mike write this?
Mike wrote this one.
Okay. So Mike wrote this in the column that Tyjae Spears is just physically a little bit smaller than Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard might be the guy that they're looking to more for the goal line work from that perspective. But Tyjae Spears, really good as a pass catcher. 52 receptions, 385 yards last year. Yep. If that's a thing that he can continue to build on, and
isn't that Tony Pollard's strength though too?
I was just gonna say, like, it feels like they've kind of got like
they've got twins.
Yes, like a Tony Pollard and a Tony Pollard light, or however you want to say it.
And if you put the two of them into one body, they'd be about the size of Derrick Henry.
Exactly. That would be amazing.
Yeah. So, it's kind of confusing. Tennessee's had a very active offseason. They're definitely better. I'll be curious to see how it all pans out. I can't quite get a grip on what I think about them. So I've got them in a C bucket.
Wow. 68% of our YouTube chat has Tyjae in the B bucket rather than the C bucket.
All right. Well, I'm glad that they're not saying S bucket when I'm saying C bucket.
Well, yeah. I think a part of it.
Where were they at on Bryce? Do we have an answer on that, Tyler? Were they
part of that conversation? While you get that from him, part of the conversation I think is the idea that how are people going to look at Tony Pollard this year, and are they going to overvalue him in the same way that they did last year, or is it going to be a spot where it feels like it really is a committee in these two? Because like you said, if I've got two running backs back to back on the same team and they're like running backs 28 and 29, what's my value? Unless one of them unfortunately gets hurt or a situation opens up, it's like, if you have two running backs, I don't have any running backs for fantasy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Kind of feels like
it. Yep, totally. So
or at least you
kind of require one of them to take over the backfield. Our producer Tyler, who I can't hear by the way, I think was saying B bucket for Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, B bucket. Okay, that's
tied B and C. Now I can hear you. I don't know if he has to like shout again. I've got like
old man here.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
All right. Breakout. How about this one?
You keep getting all of them.
Acne. Don't love it.
Don't love it at all.
Don't love it. That kind of breakout, not my favorite field.
Yeah, that's like a nasty picture there
that's
too.
That's what a breakout is, unfortunately. If maybe one of the reasons why you don't watch the YouTube stream. Other than that, though, you don't want to be here.
My kids are too young to be taking facial, like to be washing their face very often. Yeah, okay. Right,
Breakout's the worst.
I'm gonna look this way.
No, see.
No fun. I'm gonna move on.
It's C tier.
Heebie-jeebies right now.
Watching this. For me.
That's no tier. That's Z tier.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Unsubscribe.
We're working on thank yous even more with
your daughters.
Yeah. Oh God, you guys are all jerks. Kyle Pitts, Atlanta Falcons tight end.
Love it. Field.
So
that one was not in your guys' column, was it?
It was not.
No.
It was not. And just a few moments ago, we were talking about how like comes a point in a player's career where you just have to let it go. We're not there with Kyle Pitts yet, people.
Good. I like this conversation because if he doesn't do it this year with Kirk Cousins, assuming there's health and all the things we want, then it's okay to start having that conversation. But I'm in, I think, this year.
Here's why I would say I'm in. Let's just talk about the potential for a second. Okay. And people are going to say, you guys have been yapping about the potential for 3 seasons.
We've heard about the 1,000 yards as a rookie.
It did work well once, right?
Yeah.
I know that he didn't have that many touchdowns as a rookie, but he did have over 1,000 yards. He was the first player since Ditka amongst rookie tight ends to have at least 1,000 receiving yards.
Yep.
But he's 22.
Yeah.
He runs a 4.40.
Yeah.
He's 6'3", 240 pounds. He's a freak athlete, and he got a major, major quarterback upgrade and a major offensive system upgrade as well.
He's 6'6".
6'6", whatever. I shortchanged him by 3 inches.
Yes.
So you can't teach that. All right. So
love it.
There's a hypothetical in which Kyle Pitts has a big step forward.
This is the entire conversation is a hypothetical.
It's also, though, the cost now, right? Is that 2 seasons ago, you were paying a big freight, right? I mean, Kyle Pitts was going like 25th overall. There was talk about whether he should go ahead of Travis Kelce 2 years ago, right? Coming off of that
1,000-yard rookie
season.
Yep.
That obviously proved to be a fatal fantasy error in many ways. So now the cost is much less prohibitive, right? I mean, if he's going in the 8th or 9th or 10th round in your drafts, I'm not saying it's a zero risk move, but 2 weeks into the season, if Kyle Pitts stinks up the joint, you say, my bad, I'm going to somebody else.
I agree with you.
So
part of that, what you're describing, if I can step in, part of what you're describing is the idea that, and you basically said this, but a couple of years ago, it was that early round investment. Totally. In our expert mock draft that we did a couple of weeks ago, Kyle Pitts went off the board in the 8th round.
Yeah.
If you tell me that he comes off the board, and it was in the same...
can you just read a few others that are coming off the board around then? Not tight end, just in general.
David Njoku, George Pickens, Zamir White, Deontay Johnson, James Conner, Jordan Love, TJ Hawkinson, Jalen Warren. So, if you told me that Kyle Pitts has more upside than a bunch of those guys, like I could buy it in a Kirk Cousins-led offense, knowing what I saw from him as a rookie, wipe away what I've seen the last couple of years, which is very tough for us to do as fantasy managers. But like this is a situation where with a legitimate quarterback under center and all of the intangibles that you just mentioned, especially as a 22-year-old, it's not like he came out and he's been doing this for 6 years and it's like we're waiting for it and it's never going to happen. Like we're still in that window.
All right, so this is going to be, was it loosey-goosey math that Matthew used to always talk about?
Yeah.
But system in Atlanta is similar. I don't know about identical, but very similar to what they ran in Minnesota, where Kirk Cousins was the quarterback. Zach Robinson and Kevin O'Connell both came from the Sean McVay tree. All right, so similar offense, same quarterback, Kirk Cousins. During the time last year when all of them were healthy, and this was, I understand that Justin Jefferson got hurt early, but still, there have been portions of time where it was just, an A++ wide receiver. Justin Jefferson is a better, more talented player than Drake London. Okay?
Yep.
Second wide receiver last year, Jordan Addison, who I believe is a better, more talented player than Darnell Mooney.
Agreed.
And I get it. They did not have Bijan Robinson in Minnesota, but still, like you could make the argument that the pieces around TJ Hawkinson were close to the level that the pieces around Kyle Pitts are in Atlanta, right?
Yep.
And yet Hawkinson, there was still enough work for him to feast. So I get it. Like you're sort of projecting and you're kind of hoping for the best case scenario. And there's probably people out there that will say after multiple years of being burned, I'll let somebody else roll the dice on Kyle Pitts. If you're willing to roll the dice, though, there are more reasons to be optimistic this year than there have been for the past 2 seasons.
Bam. I'm with you on that. 100%.
So I'll go B tier.
That's where I would have had him too.
B seems about right.
I think that there is the upside. What do you think the ceiling is for Kyle? Everything goes right. Kyle Pitts like really is the guy that we saw fully healthy, and now he's got a quarterback. Like, is it potential top 5? And does that make him S tier?
Here's what I would say. Kind of where David Njoku ended up last year. It's not that like I expect monstrous volume every week, but like David Njoku was like a legit threat to average like 15 yards a catch and maybe score 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So if it's like 65, 70 catches at like 15 yards a catch and like 8 touchdowns for Kyle Pitts, that might be like the ceiling.
Okay.
I don't view him as, because of his unique ability to run down the field, I don't think he's going to be the kind of guy like this is not Dalton Kincaid, where again, it might be 9.5 to 11 yards per catch. It might be more like 13, 14, 15, which for a tight end is borderline rare. It's very, very uncommon.
Yeah. I'm looking at TJ Hawkinson and what his target share was with Kirk Cousins the last couple of years. And like, he's right there firmly in that like 20 to 25 range. Like
all you need for Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. If Kyle gets that.
The chat likes it.
45% wants the A bucket for what it's worth.
We should know this because like the chat, if you're here on a Friday afternoon in May,
you're dedicated.
We love you.
Yeah, we do.
We really do. Like I really do like love the loyalty of the people that are watching right now. It means a lot to us. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I like the optimism as well. We're big in Buffalo. We got a lot of tight end believers in this chat. That's cool.
I love it. I love it.
Let's do it.
We got a few more.
Yeah. Who are you picking in the finals, by the way? Have you decided yet?
Honestly, I think I'm out on basketball after the Pistons didn't get the first overall pick for the third year in a row.
Yeah.
So that was
Celtics,
tough.
please.
That was tough. I'll take the Celtics for you, though. Yeah, for you, I will do that.
I might go to game 1 or 2. Next week. Write this one down for what happens next Friday. My wife is going away for a few days, which my kids are old enough and I've been a dad long enough that I can handle my kids like on my own. But there's like one thing that I'm not sure I'll ever get good at. My older daughter has she has long hair now. I mean, she's 2.5 almost. She's got, what you'd expect hair to look like after 2.5 years. Not quite as long as yours, but long, right?
Yep.
I can't for the life of me put her hair into a ponytail like my wife can. Like my wife, like when kids do ballet, it's like, it's like perfectly like pulled back and like every hair is exactly where it's supposed to be for competition. My wife sends my daughter out the door like that every day. I'm like, damn, you look awesome. Like you are a superstar, which you tell your kids that a lot in general, right?
Of course.
When I do it, she looks like, I don't even know what. She looks like somebody who has literally never tied a bow before, which would be me. So, yeah, next week when my wife is gone for a few days, it is going to be an absolute mess hair-wise for my daughter.
Is there a chance, and I apologize about this, Field, but is there a chance your daughter did your hair today?
There is a chance.
Because it makes sense now that you said there's a little spot that just sticks up in the back there, and it's like,
apparently, so apparently I have multiple cowlicks, which I guess cowlicks can develop over time, but I've got one.
Wait, now I'm confused. Is it called cowlick or colic?
I think it's cowlick.
Is it because it's like a cow licked you? And
correct. I think it's like the...
Boy.
It might... Isn't colic... Like, colicky is like when your kid has like reflux and stuff, right?
I don't know.
We were spared the colic thing, but I'm pretty sure colicky is it's like a thing that kids can deal with. It could be a colicky baby.
Okay.
I believe it's confirmed a cowlick.
Okay. Interesting.
I guess when cows lick things, they create a circular motion.
Maybe.
I'm not a big
as good as mine. I'm not a farmer.
Hey, what though? I go to farms now more than ever. Like
with little girls.
Oh my God.
It's just like, let's go to an apple orchard and like walk around outside and look at stuff.
Like my daughter is deathly afraid of horses, but like massive pigs,
no big deal.
Kindred spirits.
Little baby goats. It's just like, oh my gosh, I want to watch you jump on stuff.
It's hilarious.
So good. All right. I got the next one here.
All right.
It's not that one.
Oops.
I dropped it, I think, is the problem.
You can just choose another one if you like.
So imagine that this one says, there we go. I found it.
There it is.
Because I pulled it while we were talking. JJ McCarthy.
Ooh, this is a fun one right here.
Another non-rookie for us to talk about today. Breakout option.
This is a rookie
this
here.
Is a rookie. Yes.
Let me ask you this question first. If I said to you that I expect JJ McCarthy to start right away for the Vikings,
yep,
would you categorize that as surprising, very surprising, mildly surprising, or not surprising?
I would consider it mildly surprising.
Okay, so that was rung 2 out of 4, right?
Correct, yeah.
So we were doing a column on ESPN.com following the drafts, and one of my lines was like, I expect JJ McCarthy to be the Vikings starting quarterback out of the gates. And we're in this weird world right now with Twitter, very weird. I mean, it's always been weird, but it's definitely weird right now.
Yep.
And I had like several Vikings like dedicated Twitter accounts. You know, this is what they do these days, right? Is they take one sentence from a long piece and they put that out there with a picture and they do like agree or disagree or like retweet if you agree, like if you don't agree or whatever.
Yeah, Field, no one cares about context anymore. We just want that one sentence that you wrote.
Correct. A lot of accounts that have shown us that. Anyways,
yes, that's true.
It was like all these Vikings accounts were like, Field Yates says JJ McCarthy is going to start in week 1. I'm like,
that's
is
not
that crazy?
what I said.
The guy was the 11th pick in the draft.
Also, it's not crazy. Yeah, and who's the guy? I hate to say this, but like, it's not like Sam Darnold has been there and like we're thinking like everyone knows if Sam starts, it's a stopgap until JJ is ready to be able to take over.
Yeah, like I mean, come on now. Like I actually have like grown to become like a big fan of Sam Darnold personally. I think he's like really sort of matured and evolved and like embraced this backup quarterback thing. Made a lot of money doing it as well. But like, if they were that committed to Sam Darnold, they wouldn't have taken JJ McCarthy 11th overall.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So my question is, knowing that they took him 11th overall, knowing that there's at least a chance that you feel like he could maybe start from the jump this year, breakout possibility for JJ McCarthy given all of the weapons that he has. Because it still, for me, seems low because he doesn't run a lot.
Right. So it's similar to what we talked about with Bryce, right? Is like, I think he is actually he's a better athlete than Bryce. I believe that.
I agree with that.
I also think the weapons are a lot better.
That's easy.
So that's the thing is that like, can he be this distributor right away? And the answer is like maybe, especially if like, can we just get the Justin Jefferson contract figured out?
Yes.
So I don't have to like. We were talking about whether there was risk involved with Justin Jefferson and being taken first overall last year because of the contract. Like here we are a year later and no progress. The weapons are good enough, though, that I could be convinced into J.J. McCarthy being a breakout. I could.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Even with T.J. Hawkinson potentially missing part of this season, you know what he can do? He can just throw the ball to Justin Jefferson more.
Right, correct.
Like,
and that was what J.J., like, you know, I've actually come to appreciate J.J.'s tape a little bit last year, from last year, like maybe a little bit more post-draft even, because, like, you go back and watch it and, like, you're not watching as much of Caleb and Drake and Jaden as well. But there are a lot of Michigan's got a tight end, Colston Loveland, who will probably be a first-round pick next year if he declares. And so I've been sort of digging back in on JJ, and it's like What you appreciate about him is like right place, right time, doing the right thing, okay? And that's an important thing for a quarterback, whereas with Drake and Jaden and certainly Caleb, it's like these unbelievable, like made for YouTube moments that you're like, dang, that's special. Yep. So I had those guys clear cut number 1, 2, 3. But with JJ, like there's enough of like doing the right thing consistently to believe that he could get there in a hurry as a fantasy quarterback. So I'll go B level here. He and Drake May are the two quarterbacks I keep coming back to. And Drake is simply because, like, for all the things that look like they're working against Drake, and there are a lot of those, like, Drake just, like, does, I can't swear, it's like a lot of cool, you know what, right? He just, like, does a lot of cool crap, you know? And that's going to sound like the worst fantasy advice of all time. But, like, CJ Stroud last year had a lot of things working against him, and then you're just like, oh, wait, this guy who's an absolute maniac throwing the football became a star right away. It's like, okay. So, yeah, anyways.
52% agree and go B tier. Field Yates. So it's like, you know, when we get at least half the listeners, I feel like, okay,
that's a win.
You know, we're looking for the pulse of the nation. Remember that segment, Pulse of the Nation?
Yeah.
SVP and Rosillo. Wow, that's a throwback.
Oh, man.
This is a tough one.
Fantasy Focus, Breaking Bad.
Oh, hey. I mean, you're talking about breakouts. If there's one thing, I mean, that show not only I feel like came out of nowhere, I wasn't expecting it, but then it was like, it's got staying power. Have you rewatched it recently?
I have not, because I am getting geared up for Your Honor, the new season, which I believe drops today.
Yeah.
I think I saw that Netflix came out today. The only thing about that that piece right there is that if you like Skylar as a character, you've got something wrong with you.
Okay.
Like, it's a character flaw.
That's fair. Yeah. I'm with you.
You want to try to do, there's 2 more in there. Do you want to see if we can knock them out in the next, like, 90 seconds?
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Right. If it's a football conversation, we'll be brief. If it's a non-football conversation, we'll
talk
still
about
be brief. Yeah.
How about Drake London as a breakout? Guys, you heard me talk about Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I'm all in. You look at what Drake London has done the last couple of years with like subpar quarterback play is a fairly easy thing to say it. Now getting Kirk Cousins under center, his target share was already massive. It wasn't the targets that we wanted, but his target share in that offense was huge. I expect that to continue. He could easily be, I have him as a top 15 wide receiver, but I could see him being inside the top 10 if things go right this year.
1,000%. Completely agree there. Sorry to just be Mr. Agree guy.
No, it's okay. Please agree.
Last one here is Zamir White. This was a Mike pick, running back from the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, so I'm going B level.
Okay. I'm going A level with Drake London for what it's worth.
Agree on Drake. I'm on A level. My quick stance on Zamir White, and we'll talk about this a ton over the next couple of months, is this. What I'm wary of is this being this year's Alexander Madison, where we say like, hey, like so much, and he's incidentally teammates with Alexander Madison right now, where it's like, yeah, you know, like great opportunity, should see a lot of work, did it last year when he filled in for Josh Jacobs, like could be this year's Alexander Madison until you actually saw Alexander Madison play last year, and it was like pretty uninspiring. That's what I'm fearful of with Zamir White. That being said, he did kind of ball out last season at the end of the year. Remember that Christmas Day game against Kansas City?
I do.
Mike Clay beat me in the Dynasty League Finals and it wasn't just because of one player. Mike Clay beat me like Luka beat the Wolves. That's right. I mean, it was not a fair fight.
That's so good.
But yeah, Zamir White was part of that effort. So congratulations.
Did you say B tier? You said for Zamir White?
B tier. Yeah.
All right. So let's recap this tier list. We're going to go through everything. If you look at the S bucket, right, we're talking Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, and Anthony Richardson. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I got nothing to fight about there. The A bucket, we have Dalton Kincaid and Drake London, which also makes sense. They've got really good situations. I don't think they're quite as high as the guy in the S tier, so that checks out.
Yep.
B bucket, we drop a little bit. Love Zack Moss and his opportunity and where he's at. Kyle Pitts, I think, given the last 2 years, it's hard to have him any higher than the B bucket. JJ McCarthy, based on his situation and all the players there, and Zamir White, again, like you had just mentioned. So that makes sense. And then in the C bucket, the two guys that we have as the lowest, unfortunately, would be Bryce Young and Tyjae Spears, given the fact he's split in time there with Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I probably feel the least excited about those two, which is why they're in the C tier. Really, really
This is a really good column, Field. For what it's worth,
yeah.
I did actually read it. I read it with you and Mike. Mike was supposed to be here to defend himself today, but like we said, unfortunately, decided just not to show up at the last minute.
Yeah, his daughters are overachievers. They're constantly being awarded things that Mike has to be in attendance to see them be awarded.
Yeah, which is weird because Mike's not really like all that smart, or I don't know where they get it from, but it's...
we are all very curious about that.
It doesn't make sense to me. All right, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We will be back next Friday, as we will throughout the entirety of the offseason, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. time every single Friday until we get to August.
Good job, Tyler.
We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other. Be kind to yourself. You are not your worst moment. Remember that. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.